Hi, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about study abroad for high school students, especially boarding school education, and the US, which is a beloved destination for Italian students. And I am with a special guest from the US, which is Mr. Roy Fink, Assistant Director of Admissions from Wilbraham Monson Academy near Boston. So, hi, Roy. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Antonella. Thanks for having me.
So, would you like to do a little bit of introduction for yourself or your school, first of all?
Sure. So my name is Roy Fink, and as you mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director of Admission here at WMA, Wilbraham Monson Academy. I work specifically with international students, so I'm probably the luckiest guy on campus. We love our international students, and they make up a big portion of our school. Wilbraham Monson is located about an hour away from Boston. It's a medium-sized boarding school, for day students and boarding students. And just like most boarding schools in the United States, we have a good mix of American and international students.
Okay, so good point. So it's not just for international students, it's not just for US students, it's a good mix. Good point. The aim of this conversation is to cover, well, I would say the main questions that families and kids ask me when it comes to boarding schools and making it such a big decision for their future. So from kids' point of view, the question usually is how they have to imagine is their typical day, like during the week.
Yeah, so boarding schools in the United States try to keep a good balance between the social side and the academic side. And at the end, there's some athletics, which usually is a pretty important thing for a lot of kids. So a typical day for students, between Monday and Friday for boarding schools would be anywhere from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock. The students going to have their academic side of the day. So they're going to have the classes. For most boarding schools, classes are anywhere around an hour each class. And students usually take anywhere from 4 to 6 classes a day. So it is a bit different than the European system when students might have 13 or 14 topics and they're going to take, anywhere from 8 to 10 classes a day. Here it's a little bit more condensed. So students will take about 4 to 6 classes. Within the academic day, they're going to also have a break for their lunch. They're always going to have a break for 35 minutes, which we call in boarding school teacher's hour, meaning that if any students need any extra help or just want to excel in the classes, they can always go and see the teachers during that time. And students usually have a 1 hour block that is free for them to maybe do an extra studying. Maybe they want to go to the gym during that time, but do something that is more designed toward themselves and improving themselves. In the afternoon, usually anywhere from 3 to 3:30 to 5 to 5:30, it's the afternoon activity. So the way it works in most boarding schools is that students need to pick an afternoon activity that can be either a sport or can be something like community service, being a part of the school paper, student government, things that they're very care and passionate about. The majority of the students do choose sports, and the sports come with different seasons. For instance, in New England, the boarding schools, in the fall, you're maybe gonna have soccer, maybe you're gonna have cross country. In the winter, you might have skiing, you might have ice hockey, and maybe in the spring, you might have golf or tennis. But there's a lot of opportunities. Schools do different sports. At WMA, we have 29 sports, but we might miss a sport and another schools might have it. We do encourage the students to get involved with different sports across the board because part of coming to America and going to a boarding school is expanding your horizon. So a kid might be very good at soccer, but might not be very good at basketball. We still encourage them to play basketball in the winter if they're interested in that. And we have different levels. You're going to have the varsity level, which is the strongest teams. You might have the junior varsity for kids who are not as strong, and maybe a third team for kids who just want to learn the sport. Because that's part of being in a boarding school. And then,
can I ask you something about sports, because you mentioned that, so it was going to be one of my questions. Sometimes myself also, I suggest maybe the US as a destination for high school students if they want to practice sport. And sometimes I get requests from athletes, I would say, so students who play some sports at a professional level neither as well. How is the, like you mentioned that sports are available to different levels and also for varsity. Can you explain a little bit about this, like the recruitment in and how they can join or not a team and something like this?
So every school is different, obviously. So I can speak from my own experience. At WMA, we do recruit athletes that are good students because that's part of the big part of the equation. So students that might be very good at a sport. Let's say a soccer kid comes here and he plays in high level in Italy. He wants to continue sports, but he also want to have to go to a good school, a boarding school that he can excel with his academics, so it can open more doors for him or her. They can play in the fall. And if they're very good, we can help them to find a local club team that they can continue playing for another trimester. Every school is a little different. So for us, it's called an exemption. So a student is very good, plays in the fall, we'll find a club team for him. They can travel and practice with those teams during the spring. Um, Students that might not be as strong and might be weaker athletes, but do want to continue playing with a sport or continue trying sports. There's so many levels of sports within the same sport that they'll be able to do that. You know, some teams are very strong, some teams are weaker. Some teams are more for learning the sport. We have a water polo team here that is a co-ed team that is not the strongest teams, and we always have kids that were decent swimmers that said, "Hey, you know, I want to try the water polo," and they join us. So again, depend on
So
the
it can
level.
also be just for fun if they want, like just for
Correct.
fun.
Correct. And part of it is just to keep them active, the students active. Part of it, it's healthy. We do preach, you know, about having the balance of life, not just sitting in front of a computer all day long and doing nothing. So we do try to keep the kids motivated in different ways.
What about the weekends? Because of course, international students, well, in our case, they will be boarders, so they will be living campus. Which is the difference between school days and weekend days, what they can do and what job opportunities.
This is a question that comes up all the time, weekend activities. So, you know, during the week, the school schedule is very busy. So, you know, the evenings they have study also. They rarely ever have a chance to leave campus. Some schools like us have some stores around us, so they are able to live, you know, if they have a free block. But the majority of the time they spend on campus during the week. On the weekends, most schools have different things going on Friday night, different things going on Saturday night on campus. So we might have a karaoke night, we might have a pizza party, we might have a movie night for the students to have something to do. But on Saturday and Sunday, usually Saturday, they're going to have the competition, which means, let's say in their soccer season, they have a soccer game, skiing season, they might have a skiing race, and so forth. So Saturdays are pretty busy. We always have weekend activities on Saturday and Sunday, as far as the students might go to an amusement park, and it's going to be organized by us. We're going to have a bus taking the students. We might take the students to the shopping malls. We might take them to certain restaurants. We might take them just to local Target or Walmart just to buy certain things. Maybe a mini golf. Maybe we'll take them to Boston for the day. So there's always things for the students to do to stay active. Now, it's not mandatory, and they choose if they want to sign up for it. Some students just want to take Sunday and just relax all day, which is fine. We encourage the students to not to. We encourage them to get more involved just because it's more fun. They're going to get to meet new people. They're going to get to have a fuller experience.
And they also improve their English and they will know
Yep,
about the area and the kids. Yeah, I agree.
exactly.
When it comes to parents, well, of course, many more questions usually arise. So the big question, which can split into several other questions, is the general support. So when I ask about support, what comes to your mind?
So that's a great question. And I think that's a really good place to be at. Boarding schools are a really good place for students who are needing it or not needing it, but may seek for it at some point. Let's start with the teachers. The nature of the beast is that most teachers have more than one role in the school. Students who come here, their mathematics teacher might also be their dorm parent, and it might be also be one of the coaches, meaning that those boundaries are broken, meaning students doesn't just come here and in a typical school in Europe, the 3 o'clock is done, the teachers goes home, the student goes to their house, meaning that students become kind of more engage in the community and engage with the teachers, meaning that the teachers become much more approachable. So a student needs any help with academics, or maybe they have any other issues, the teachers become more of, I don't want to call it a friend because that's not the right thing, but more or they can look at the students more in the eye level, whereas other places it might be more of a fear from speaking to the teacher. So the teachers are very approachable. Then every student here in boarding schools get an advisor. So I have 5 students that I meet on a weekly basis, whether it is individual meeting or whether it is as a group. And I become their support system. I become the mentor on campus, and I help them with anything they might have. Maybe it's an issue with the teacher that they need help with, and I will become the mediator between the teacher and the student. Maybe they have an issue with a roommate, so I support them and I tell them, okay, this is the person you need to speak to. But the advisors are really play a really major role here in the support of the students.
So
Then,
you're all advisor.
yeah, and I'm lucky enough to have 5 international students. I love them. They usually are hard to work with at the beginning because they are missing home and they have a lot of things that they need to work with. But at the end of the process, they're the best students we have and they're the most fun kids to work with. Then after that, you're going to have the coaches for the students that are much more close to the kids. And if there's any issues, they're always being able to help. And a few services that we always offer at WMA, beside the counseling that we have. So if any students have any emotional issues, anything they miss home, anything that they need help with, we do have a few counselors on campus that are always available for the students. Health services. So if a student gets sick, we have for every boarding school have a nurse on campus for 24 hours. The dorm parents, which become kind of the people who guide the students. So whether they are there to make sure that the students wake up in the morning and go to their classes, all the way to being monitoring the study hall, making sure that the students actually study. But if there's any issues, they're very approachable and the students are able to go speak to them at any time of the day, any time of the night. And the last services we have is college counseling, which is the people that do pretty much what you do, Antonella. But when the students are here and they're looking at universities, whether the students want to go back to Italy or anywhere in Europe to study or to stay in the United States, college counseling meets them and speaks to them about that. And giving them all the support they need with the application process, recommendation letters, transcripts, college visits, and the decision making, which is important at the end.
About talking about college and university, as we talk, as we call them, applications. Well, your school is what we also call preparatory school because you are very good to prepare students for college applications. And the one question sometimes some families ask me is why it's not advisable, or why sometimes I advise them to apply for more than 1 year abroad before applying to university. So why 1 year might not be enough?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, we run with it with Italian students, German students, Austrians that just look to come here for 1 year. I think it's a more realistic situation to come here for more than 1 year, just because you give yourself more time. You give yourself much more opportunity. Number one, to take classes that are going to help you with a college application. It's going to help you with getting to know people here and people to get to know you for the recommendation letters. And last, it's going to give you more time to apply. Some schools and the top schools do look for early applications. And when you get here, pretty much at the end of August, really the beginning of September, you start the process. It is a very quick ones for you to find out what schools you really want to go to. We try to find the best fit schools for the students, meaning, whether it's a major that they're interested in, whether it is the size of the school, the region of the country. And it is said sometimes that students that we find later on that are much more fit to a school that is different, that they could have got into, and it might be a very high level or it might be a smaller school, but doesn't have room anymore just because the students didn't have that enough time to apply for. So we do recommend at least 2 years being here. Students come here for 1 year. We do our best in the summer to get to know them much better. Our college team or college placement team does meet them in the summer and does the best. But I do feel that giving yourself another year, so giving yourself at least 2 years, is a much better situation for the students.
Because as you said, you missed opportunities, and maybe they even missed opportunities for scholarship at college, because they will be
Yeah,
that as well as funds, so they will even miss that opportunity, which was
absolutely.
important. So
And it comes down to, what the kids want to do after they graduate from high school. And things change. Some kids come here with the thought that they're going to go back home right away, and they stay here and they go to college and they love it. But I think, especially when you speak about athletes, college recruiting for athletes starts a little earlier.
that's
For the most part, you
really
know, for the girls, it starts as early as the ninth grade. For boys, it usually starts around anywhere from late in the 10th grade to early in the 11th grade. The college opportunities in the United States for athletic scholarships are tremendous, especially for sports that are not really American sports. Soccer, I'll give just example one is soccer, sometimes basketball, sports like water polo, things that are high level in Italy, but not might be high level in the US. It's great opportunities. Personal experience, I came to the United States from a different country on a scholarship to play soccer because it was a big sport where I came from, and it's not as major in the United States. So if students are looking for that, that can give them a much better opportunity because the coach is going to be able to see them early enough and they recognize them and recruit them early enough.
So I didn't know that. So you were, I would say, an international student yourself.
Correct. So I came here and played soccer at the University of Tampa. I was on a full scholarship, which I was very lucky to get. They're not very common, but 25 years ago, soccer in the United States was not as developed. So I got lucky with that. I stayed. They paid for my undergrad. They paid for my grad school. And I'm still here 25 years later. So I never thought it's going to happen. Never thought I'm going to stay here more than 1 or 2 years, but it's a good life standards and good fun place to be at, and just chose to stay.
You can actually understand like the struggle of international students when they come to a different country and new school, new rules, everything is different.
Yeah, and this is why I love my international students, because I went through those struggles myself in a little older age, but at the same time I did go through it. I went through the same problems of having the fear that my English is not going to be good enough, and waking up 2 months later and starting to dream in English. And I did this entire process of looking back and saying, if I spend more time in the United States before I actually started college, maybe I would have been in a better situation. Which is, I think what you do is one of the most amazing things, helping kids as young as high school kids to come here and integrate into the community right away and seeing those possibilities and opportunities for the college, which is really when it matters for the next 40 years after the college. So it is a fun thing.
So you just won a special question from me, which is which is this. So which is great. I didn't know about your personal history. We never had enough time to speak to each other sometimes. It's rush. So being a former international student and an experienced admission person and an advisor at the same time, there are special advices that it will give to motivated, but of course a little concerned parents and students that are considering boarding school abroad, more than 1 year or 1 year abroad at the young age.
I mean, I think it's really a personal choice, right? So some students come here because they know they're going to come here for 1 year. They just want to do the experience to improve their English, make new friends, increase their network, because at the end of the day, you never know where you're going to end up in life, and you might want to start a business with somebody you're going to meet here, or just experience the American lifestyle. So I do think that that's very valuable. We do get a lot of students who want to do that, and they love it, and they come visit us later on and they said, well, I wish I stayed longer. I wish I came here earlier. And I think it comes down to this style of teaching. The European system, especially in Italy, in Germany, in Austria, is very rigorous. It goes by, the teachers are held very highly up there, and the students are afraid to speak to them. It's mainly lecture based. which is a little different. Boarding schools are much more, I don't want to say open-minded because that's not the correct word, but I do think that they're, number one is most classes are not lecture. Most classes are open forum and are more conversational. So the students' opinions matters much more, which makes the students feel much more welcomed and make them want to be more invested in the classroom. I do feel that we have many more opportunities with the grading system here, whereas in Italy you might have a midterm and a final. In a well, I shouldn't say WMA, but in boarding school in general, you will have many assignments, you will have quizzes, you'll have homework, you'll be graded on your participation, which means that if you're a good student, and let's say you got sick before the midterm and you get bad grade, that's not going to affect you as much as if you were back home and you do 1 or 2 exams a year. So the grading system is much more forgiving, I should say.
The teaching style that you mentioned, it's a good point because it's over the years, one of the main topics that comes out when I speak to students, like especially the ones not coming from international schools, but coming from traditional high schools, where people should know very well after years of experience, which has, I mean, big classes, lectures based, and there's no time, no space for conversation between teachers and kids, and this is not good for everyone. And what students say to me usually is that the boarding school system is the way it is that they have a real conversation, a real relationship with the teachers. And also there's this perception that it's a kind of win-win. Like if you fail, it's our failure, so we have to work on that. If you succeed, it's the school's success. So which is something completely unknown in Italian school today. So I think that's something really special about.
100% agree. 100% agree. And I think that the word I like to use is friendly. It's a much friendlier environment.
Yeah.
You know, I remember being in high school in a different country and being afraid to look at a teacher in the eyes when I walked by them, just because I didn't know what to say. Here, every teacher going to ask you how you were doing. Every teacher, our classes are small, so you're going to have 12 to 15 students. Teachers know everything about the kids, which is a good thing. Now, if you're a bad kid, which is very unusual, it's not a good thing because now, you know, you're under the microscope. But if you're a good kid, teachers going to show interest in you and they're going to find out more things about you, which makes you want to study, which makes you really want to be a bigger part of the school rather than just being, you know, a student who comes in and goes home in the afternoon.
Yeah, yesterday I was speaking to one of my families, and his mother said, well, the daughter just started in a boarding school abroad, and she said after a few weeks, the school emailed us and said, this girl got a kind of honor prize or something, right? And that the school not only wanted them to know, but they wanted to schedule a phone call with them, with the parents, so they could explain why they give this prize and I mean, how much happy they were for the students, which is really, I mean, this doesn't exist in Italy. No way. So, and they were really surprised. It was like, I mean, you can feel the participation, right? The idea of, I mean, it's a community. That's
Exactly.
yeah. What else do you think is special about the boarding school system? And of course, your school. What do you think is the most special about both of them?
So I think I would speak in the general first, and then I will speak more in the specific about my school. I think in general is a lot of the things we already spoke about. Is the communities. Boarding schools in general are like, you know, mini university. Obviously, it is a community where you have you know, teachers and students and coaches and different people that try to integrate together and make a fun place. Make a happy place, a place that we try to encourage the students rather than really punish them in a way. So I think that's in a general something that is very unique to boarding schools compared to a public school, right? Every school is different, so every school has their own niches. Whether it is athletic side, you know, some schools have better programs, some schools have better academic programs. I will tell you at WMA, we take two things, in my opinion. If I had to guess from working with international students, and some American. The two things that probably makes us unique, number one, is we got a super friendly community. We have kids from 35 different countries, which most boarding schools do have. So meaning that an Italian student is going to come in and is going to meet kids from every continent. It's nice because the classes are small. So if you have 12 students in a classroom and you have kids from 7 or 8 countries, and you speak about, some type of business, let's say, and you got 5 or 6 countries representing and talking about it, and the economic systems in those countries are completely different, you learn from it. So it brings a lot of ideas to the table. Wilbraham Monson, I'd say, as I said, a community with the different countries. Our SIF program, which is the Center of Economic Entrepreneurship and Finance, it's trademarked. It's one of the only places that teach finance, economics, entrepreneurship in a high level, which for me, if I had to say, that's pretty much one of our biggest selling point. The majority of international students who come here do find interest in those programs. We have a trading center on campus. Students learn anywhere from just what stocks and what equities they can buy, anywhere to a senior seminar when we give them actual money to buy stocks. So it gives them a real life experience. So I'd say those are really things that makes us unique. Some schools, some boarding schools might be more proficient about their science department. Some schools might have a very strong robotic program. Some school might have a very strong American football program. We each have our own unique little things. And that's when it comes to the students to do a little bit of research, a little background, finding out what is really interest them, and then go to that school. But the general look at boarding school, very similar, small classrooms, friendly environment, tight-knit communities. I think strong college placement. Those really are the strength and the pillars of being in a boarding school.
My last question would be then, of course, what I usually say to families is that as much as every student has a different personality, interest, projects and dreams and everything, it works the same with boarding schools, which are different communities. So you said before, every school is different as a personality. I literally say each school has a personality. So my role is usually to combine those two and give it a match, right? So when you recruit students, when you go through the admission process, which you think is the best combination? Like what type of students would be the best fit for your school and the other way around?
That's a really good question. In an ideal world, we will want a perfect student that has perfect recommendation letters and so on. But obviously, that doesn't happen. We are looking for good students. Students that do well. We're not going to shy away from a student that might not be perfect, that might have a few grades that are below par, as long as we know that he is a hard worker. For us, I would say the most important thing is the character of the student. We try to shy away from students that have, that don't like to comply within a community or get in trouble. So the students that we do like is students that usually want to get involved, want to do more than just 1 or 2 things on campus, students that are happy, students that want to come to our school and explore and get the entire experience. So that I know it's a general answer, but for me, it's more about the character than anything else. And I think that's my biggest challenge and role in the admission office, because sometimes looking at a transcript is kind of misleading. And it takes away from really the personality of the students. That's why we do the interview. We do travel and try to meet students and families just to create kind of a relationship and start learning more about the students. But we are who we are, and we know it. And for us, it's having kids that are going to come in and going to improve the community and keep it happy. That's really important for us.
Yeah, it's correct. Sometimes reports, they don't say enough, because there are several things behind reports, as either it was a good school or not. And I have to say, if it was the right school, they wouldn't probably travel in some cases, or they don't receive enough stimulus to study, or well, several reasons. In Italy, we have a set number of subjects. So also the non-possibility to select their own subjects, it's one of the reasons why sometimes they fail in some classes, but they are good in others. So yeah, I would say it's for what I know, it's a comprehensive way of admission approach. So
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% that you know, sorry to backtrack, but it does bring me back to a good comment you made about the classes that they choose. So it's not 100%, you know, they can go and say, I want to study this, and that, and you get it. But you know, in Italy, pretty much, if you go to a scientific school or you go to a philosophical school, you have to choose. You don't have much leverage. With us, you will. So you will have to take English, mathematics, science, and social science. But you're going to have some leverage within those topics to choose the classes you take. And on top of it, you're going to have many electives, anywhere from business to art to music to computer science. You will be able to choose those classes, which you might find more interesting for you. It's going to give you a chance to actually explore and find if you're really interested in those topics. Because some students have an idea and say, oh, you know, I really like computer science, but not really knowing anything about it. And then they take a class and said, well, maybe I don't.
yeah, I thought it was different. Yes.
And you know, we do get students, you know, once in a while that might not really care for art, but they come in and take an art class, and suddenly they are really good at art, and that's something they might want to pursue later on. So I think that's something that is very, very important, very smart, and very good about boarding schools.
Yeah, but I think there's some American writer, I don't remember his name, but there was this picture of, if you are a fish in a bowl, you only know that water. If you go, you know, in a bigger sea and the ocean, you know much more. That's the same. If you've ever been studying only a few subjects and not being exposed to many opportunities, even extracurricular, you will end up with a few options for your career or even non-university career or whatever. But you are exposed to more options and you are able to explore, and without the fear of missing something or without the fear of fail, there would be better chances that you end up with new opportunities that you never thought about. And even your parents, because they didn't know. So it's not their fault. I mean, it's just no one knew.
All
So
the living.
yeah.
You know, and for me, it's kind of interesting. So I came here from a small country,
Now
and
we have to why. Which one? Because I mean,
I can say I came here from Israel
okay.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I lived in a very, very small and a tight-knit world with, you know, a
Okay.
country that had 7 million people. I did travel around the world, but it's not the same as living somewhere else. And I went to the University of Tampa in Florida, and I couldn't believe I learned about countries that I never even know exist, and about topics that I never even know exist. And I think it broadens your horizons so much that when you go home, you can share those experiences, but you actually also see how much the world is bigger than just your small town that you lived in all your life.
Well, I don't know, like I come from a small village in the south of Italy. Then I went, I mean, during my life, because of the university choice I made, which was an international business school. So I
Uh-huh.
changed, like, okay, bigger cities in London a little bit. So my horizon would be expanding over the years. And I mean, I could not think when I was 18 years old, I would think to work on my own, do this job. And well, meeting so many people from all over the world like yourself to conferences and events and something. So yes, I mean, the world is a bit bigger than just the place you live. It's really, I find it's really great when parents take the chance, as much as they can be scared or concerned or everything about security and safety and everything, and they invest on their kids. They say, okay, I trust that you can make the most of that, and they give them this opportunity. I find it very, I mean, I really respect that, and I'm always really glad if they involved us, if they involve me in this conversation, because it's a huge responsibility as much as it is for you in schools.
Absolutely. And we can just tell them, and we can just try to explain how great it is. And I think for them, it's taking that leap of faith, saying, I want more for my kid, and just staying, you know, where he is or where she is, and moving to a bigger place and taking that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think, well, we can go on and discuss hours and hours. I think that the most relevant, I would say, topics in the introductory topics have been covered. So I'm sure that families will be finding this conversation very useful. Thank you very much for the information you gave me. Before ending the conversation, I would say I would remind people that so Wilbraham Monson is 1 hour drive from Boston. So also very easy to be connected by by flight from Italy, and that it's possible to be enrolled for like 1 year, more than 1 year, from 14 years old, if I'm correct, right? Onward.
Yeah, we actually have 7 and 8 graders living in a middle school. It's a
Okay.
very small program, but you know, we also take students for a shorter time, so half a year. If there's interest there.
Okay, so 1 semester, 1 year, even more, and even younger than 14 years old, now that
Yeah.
I've been told. And that, of course, any additional information they can contact us and arrange. We can also arrange a joint video call with prospective feminists, and that you will find contacts on the video description. So thank you very much again for taking this time to talk to me and describe this great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Antonella. It's been a pleasure.
And see you soon. Thanks.
See you soon.
Thanks.